The beauty of a personal knowledge management system is in the word personal. It's personal because of what information you save. It's personal because of why you save that information. And it's personal because of how you manage that information. Now, over the years, I have learned a lot from people like Tiago Forte on building a second brain. And I recently have dove into the Zettelkasten method, which I'm really enjoying as well. And I've found that I'm kind of picking these concepts that work for me, and it's kind of morphing into a hybrid system between Zettelkasten and Second Brain. And I've realized that over time, as you grow in your personal knowledge management journey, your system should change with you, right? And so today I want to peel back the curtain and kind of show you my setup as of now in 2023, how I am combining Second Brain and Zettelkasten into one system. So I'm going to show you my 4-step process for purposeful thinking and creating. I'm going to show you the 8 apps that I use to go from capturing to sharing. And then I'm going to just show you a complete walkthrough of my Second Brain / Zettelkasten system and the notes app that I use called Craft Docs. Now, before we get started, I do have a gift for you for hanging out with me and watching this video. This is my free guide on how to take book notes and get those insights into your personal knowledge management system or your second brain, whatever you want to call it. By the end of the guide, you will have a simple process for highlighting your books, a mindful approach for adding content to your second brain, a process for creating building blocks of knowledge for the future, and then finally a simple tip for making more connections inside of your second brain. The link to that guide is in the description below. Okay, so how this is going to work is I will show you each step of my 4-step process, and inside of each step I will show you what apps that I'm using and also what that looks like in Craft. So Tiago's code method was my starting point and how I really truly started to understand personal knowledge management. Code is an acronym for Capture, Organize, Distill, and Express. And I will link a video for you that I did on that to explain that further. Now, over time, with me learning more about myself, my preferences, my personality, and how I take notes and how I think of my second brain, I have started noticing some changes in the system. So it's morphed into something slightly different that works for me. All right, so this is what it looks like. This 4-step process helps me to, number 1, capture interesting thoughts and ideas. Number 2 is to connect those ideas. 3 is create from the connections. And 4 is to share that with someone. So when it comes to what I capture, it falls in 2 different buckets. Number 1 is what comes to mind. And number 2 is what I consume. This concept comes from a video that I watched from Darren, who brilliantly went over the Zettelkasten and productive thinking. So shout out to Darren and thank you for all your hard work on explaining Zettelkasten. It's helped me a lot. What comes to mind includes sparks, which are random ideas and thoughts throughout the day. You can kind of think of this as the fleeting notes from the Zettelkasten method. Another thing that I capture when it comes to mind is meaningful moments. And those are small experiences that I don't want to forget. They could be used in maybe in a way that when I share something as a way to illustrate or make a point, an analogy, or it could just be a way for me to go back and remember. And then I have red threads. These are activities that I do throughout my day where I feel like time has flown by. Like I am so immersed in the activity that I'm doing. And I want to capture these because they are hints of who God created me to be. And I want to be able to articulate those things and be able to come back and then remember, oh, these are the specific activities and who I was with and what I was doing. I want to do those more often because I get the most joy out of doing those activities, and I feel the most productive, and I feel like I add the most value and contribution whenever I am doing those things. So I write them down. Then there's what I consume. What I consume includes, for me, quotes. I personally copy quotes. I think this goes against the Zettelkasten method, maybe, on putting quotes inside of your system, but I do that because oftentimes I will go back through my quotes and I'll find a random quote, and just reading the words again sparks something in me, and I'm off to the races to writing something and creating something. So I like to have the original quotes inside of my system that I can go back to. And then I have literature notes. So you may be familiar with this if you are a big Zettelkasten fan. Literature notes for me are thoughts that I have when I am reading a book, when I'm listening to a podcast, when I am watching a YouTube video, or maybe from a conversation I am interacting with somebody or something else, technology-wise, and I have thoughts about that, what I just consumed, and so that's considered a literature note for me. I also have Bible notes. These are thoughts and insights from when I read the Bible. It is a book of literature, believe it or not. It's all kinds of literature. And finally, I have powerful questions. Any question that I come across that completely flips my perspective and helps me to get out of the thinking that I'm stuck in, I want to remember those questions because I want to be able to ask myself those questions in the future so that I can not be stuck in a thought or a framework of mind or a perspective. So I document those as well and capture those. Now, the apps used in the capture phase are Craft Docs, my camera app on my phone, and voice memo on my phone. Now, so what does this look like in Craft? Similar to Tiago Forte's PARA method, which is projects, areas, resources, and archive, I've organized the main folders by actionability, just like he talks about. And those folders for me are Zettels. Zettels comes from Zettelkasten. The word Zettel means note in German. These are the most active. I am in the Zettels throughout my day, more than even projects. So I have Zettels, and then I have projects, and then I have hubs, and then archive, which is the least active. Inside of the Zettels folder are all the types of Zettels notes that I just mentioned, the sparks, the meaningful moments, the quotes, all of that stuff is there in that folder. Anytime that I have a note that I need to jot down, I simply open up the Zettels folder, and I just instinctively know what type of note it is. I go to that folder and add it in there, and then I'll start connecting notes after that, and I'll go over that in a second. Okay, so now we're moving on to connect. We talked about capture. That's the first step in my purposeful thinking and creating process. Next step is connect. And the code method, this is where we would be organizing, capture, organize. Okay, if you're following along and you are used to Tiago's code method. I find that I am organizing notes by connecting the notes to each other, to projects, and to hubs. So a hub is similar to areas in the PARA method: projects, areas, resources, archives. So areas, hubs, but they're not limited just areas. So area for me could be marriage, it could be finances, health. So those are hubs for me, but they're also thought themes, if you want to call it that, or just they are topics that I'm interested in, or a phrase that just keeps coming up, that from the notes that I've taken where I didn't have necessarily a area or a hub for it to connect to. It's kind of morphed from the bottom up. That's how Zettelkasten works, is you have these notes that you take, and eventually you notice there is a theme or a pattern of the notes, all these notes, and then you can name that. So one of my themes is a life of with, talking about life needs to be done with other people, right? I don't need to be in isolation. I need to be with people, a life of with anything in my life. Creativity is much better when you are doing it with somebody else. You're more creative whenever you create with other people, and you involve other people. So anyways, a life of with. Another one for me is abundance. That is not necessarily an area, right? But it's a place, a collection of things where I want to remember and jot down that where I saw abundance in my life. Whether that's finances or whether that's in my marriage or with my parenting, I want to see and go back to where have I seen abundance, because I need to remind myself of that. So all of that to say, those are what hubs are. Okay, so in Connect, I am taking the note and I'm connecting it to a project, a hub, or other related notes. And so instead of asking myself, where can I file this? Like in the old days, right? Where can I put this file? It's what does this connect to? What does this relate to? Where have I seen this before? To connect is to bring together, or to bring together into contact so that a real link is established. Okay? And the more that I've grown in my personal knowledge management journey, the more that I've come to realize that there is a difference between organizing and connecting. Let me kind of break that down for a second. Organize, by definition, is to arrange in a structured order. You organize so that you can find things easily. For example, you may organize your pantry so that you can find things. You may organize your closet so you can find things. You may organize your dresser, drawers, and all that stuff so you can find things. But what if finding was not needed as much, right? Like, what if it's more effective to find connections than it is to find the right fit inside of a folder? So filing notes really isn't needed as much from my experience now that we have tags and bi-directional links and search. Search is powerful. So in knowledge management, I have found that organization comes in handy whenever I am trying to arrange ideas and order ideas. I'm organizing, I'm arranging ideas. How can I find the best order so that it makes sense to the end user, to the person that I'm speaking to? Like for a meeting or a blog post or a YouTube video. So it's organization of the content within a note rather than the whole system itself. Now, the apps that I use for connection is Craft. That's it. Now, what does this look like in Craft? Every Zettel is connected with a project, a hub, or other related notes, and it's all using bi-directional links inside of Craft. Every time that I write down a note, I try to, at that moment, write down what hub it's related to, related notes, if I can think of any at the moment, and also a project. So it's a habit that I've tried to form as I jot down notes, and I'm in the moment right there. Whatever I can remember, I link it. And it's okay if I can't think of anything. I do have a process at the end of the week on Sundays with my weekly review where I actually go through my Zettels and I go through them, and if I think of something at the time when I'm doing my weekly review, I will connect notes and projects and hubs at that point. Part of the creative process for me is to distill, to form, and to make. And this may sound familiar to you, again, with the code method, because that is distill. D is distill in the code method. This is where what I call diamond notes live. Diamond notes will be the equivalent of a permanent note in the Zettelkasten method. Permanent being they are ready to ship. They are in full sentences, and the permanent note has usually just one idea packaged inside of that note, and it can be shared as if you had already written it for somebody, and it's good to go. Now, I named them diamond notes because these notes are treasures waiting to be discovered. They originate from deep within you, right? And they are formed through a process, just like diamonds are. But in this case, this process is capture and connect, okay? And they can serve you and others in many ways. Now, you'll notice that I have these arrows between connect and create, and at the top and the bottom there. And it's because that process is a continual process until I get to share. It's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, until a diamond is formed. Now, the apps that I use to create at the moment are Craft. Again, this is to create shareable notes. Okay, in Craft, it is easy to decorate, if you want to call it that, and design notes. It is a very beautiful app and very beautiful in how you can create your notes. So I create shareable notes with Craft, and Canva is to make graphics, also to generate AI graphics. I like to sometimes have a visual element to the notes. It really helps. Then I use Figma. And then the actual product within Figma, the company's Figma, but FigJam is their whiteboard product. It's free, and it is my whiteboard app that I prefer to use. It is a different way to experience notes. And then Spotify. Spotify helps me create because it is something that I use. I listen to usually ambient music, and it's one song on repeat over and over and over again to help me focus and get in the zone and get to where I am just immersed in the song and I can start creating. What does this look like in Craft and all this, right? For me, if I'm focused on turning a note into a diamond, I will usually move that note from the Zettels into the projects folder that I have. This is where projects come into play. So any note that I'm like kind of heavily working through and working on that seems to be just popping up and I can't really stop thinking about it, I kind of use that as a way to know, okay, this is something I need to continue writing about and thinking about. So I put that in my projects. Projects is a way for me to easily see what am I working on, what am I thinking about right now. Other projects for me are, YouTube scripts that I'm writing, books that I'm reading. I consider those projects as well. And as I mentioned, Craft, you can create pages and you can design pages. You can use things like blocks, and you can create, you can color the blocks, and you can use what they call focus, which is like a quote block, right? And these are in other apps as well. It's not something new, but the fact is that you can easily decorate, is what I call it, decorate and design your note so that when you share it, it can be the experience of reading the note can be a good experience. All right, so far we have covered capture, connect, and create. This is the last step now, and it is share. Now, I chose this word intentionally because to share is to take something that you have and to offer the experience to someone else or with others. It has to involve somebody else. Like you can't share when there's a party of one. What I've found is that I can create and express all day I can express my thoughts in a note on a topic. And the definition of express is to convey a thought or a feeling, right? And I can do that in a note. But until I have taken what I have expressed, created, made, until I've taken that thought and allowed others to experience it with me, it will not realize its full potential. The idea will not realize its full impact and potential. And so sharing opens the door for an idea to be realized by somebody else, or an idea to become refined by someone else's perspective. Think about the last book that changed your life, right? The author, they wrote the manuscript. Okay, they expressed, they created something, but your life wasn't changed until they shared that thought and that shared what they created. Sharing is powerful. If you're not involving others in your ideas and allowing them to experience what you've been thinking about, you're missing out on adding value to someone's life. I'm speaking to myself, okay? And you, but I'm speaking to myself. I need to share. We need to share the things that are on our hearts, the things that are on our minds, the perspective that we have. I have what I call multiple avenues of sharing. And it's a combination of live or in person and online. So for me, online, I share on YouTube, on this channel right here, and I also share sometimes on Facebook groups, social media, but the main online portion is on YouTube. And then in person and live, I really enjoy conversations. And it could be a mastermind with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people or whatever. Or it could be just a one-on-one conversation, but I think I've forgotten the impact a conversation can have. A live conversation. Conversations, they are amazing because of the immediate feedback that you get on your idea when you share it with somebody and they're like, I've never thought of it that way. It's like, that's feedback right there. That's something that is telling you that you've got something going on. There's some spark in that idea. Or it could be, you get immediate feedback or your ideas are refined right then and there because somebody else has thought of something that you've not thought of. And immediately you're like, I've never thought of it like that, or I've never looked at it from that angle. And now I have this whole other perspective that I can help that will refine my idea, that will make it better. And also I sometimes will speak at my church, and so that's another way for me to share what God has put on my heart. So those are the avenues of sharing. You want to have multiple avenues, online and live or in person. Now the apps that I use to share are, you guessed it, Craft and YouTube, sometimes Facebook. What does this look like for me? Sometimes I'll take, the content from a diamond note. I'll just copy and paste it into the Facebook group, into that, the little box there. But Craft has a way, and there's other apps out there as well, but there's ways to share your notes. You can share a PDF of the note. You can share an image of the note. You can share a link, almost like it's its own website, a link to the note where somebody can view it on their device, on a laptop, a phone, whatever. And so I will, when I'm wanting to share something, I simply can just share that note, and I can even put a password on it if I want to, if it's sensitive for whatever reason. But there's a lot of ways to share in Craft. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you want to continue nerding out with me on personal knowledge management, check out this next video.